the Belated Binge Podcast.
Hi, and welcome to the Belated Binge Podcast, the Harry Potter podcast that doesn't take itself or the books too seriously. I'm Zach, and despite being the same age as Harry in the movie timeline, I didn't read these through until my mid-20s. Now I'm diving deep into each chapter of the series, and in this episode, I'll share my thoughts on the best foreshadow moments. I'll give and take both arbitrary house points for the key characters, and I'll round out what I found to be completely ridiculous from Chapter 14 of Chamber of Secrets. Before we jump in, shout out to Free Elf patron Alex Swetlin. Let's do some
Divination.
It's time to highlight 4 moments in the chapter that foreshadow something to come in the future. 1. And I'm going to give you a warning, actually. Every single one of these is a quote, and some of them are actually kind of long. So this one, starting with, "Riddle might have got the wrong person," said Hermione. "Maybe it was some other monster that was attacking people." "How many monsters do you think this place can hold?" Ron asked dully. "We always knew Hagrid had been expelled," said Harry miserably, "and the attacks must have stopped after Hagrid was kicked out. Otherwise, Riddle wouldn't have got this award." Long quote, but it's a 2-for-1 foreshadow special here. Hermione is mostly right. Riddle did get the wrong person in trouble, but, that was because he actually was the heir himself and the one that was guilty. Harry's also right. The attacks did stop after Hagrid was expelled because Riddle couldn't keep going to the chamber after framing the person who was supposedly guilty for the crime. So this is kind of a like I said, a 2-for-1 foreshadow special in this little bit of dialogue with our little 12-year-olds on the case. 2. "Look at it from my point of view," said Fudge, fidgeting with his bowler. "I'm under a lot of pressure. Got to be seen doing something. If it turns out it wasn't Hagrid, he'll be back, no more said, but I've got to take him. Got to. Wouldn't be doing my duty." Doing his duty. So this is a foreshadow for Mr. Fudge over here. 1, Hagrid ends up coming right back because it does turn out that it wasn't Hagrid, but that's not what this foreshadow is really about. This foreshadow is about Fudge and his blatant incompetence, his feeling that he needs to be seen doing something more than he needs to actually be doing something right. This is a non-stop theme that happens in this series with Fudge in charge. He is a pure, just politician in every sense of the word. He is more concerned about voters seeing him taking some sort of action that he believes that they would approve of, or at least see him trying something, even if that something is completely misguided and useless. And that's going to be quite familiar as this series goes on. 3. "See here, Malfoy, if Dumbledore can't stop them," said Fudge, whose upper lip was sweating now. "I mean to say, who can?" "That remains to be seen," said Mr. Malfoy with a nasty smile. "But as all 12 of us have voted," Hagrid leapt to his feet, his shaggy black head grazing the ceiling. "And how many did you have to threaten and blackmail before they agreed, Malfoy, eh?" he roared. That's, well, exactly what happened, Mr. Hagrid. This is a foreshadow to the end of the book when we realize that part of what Dumbledore does while he's not at the school is go to visit the other governors of the school, and he finds out that Lucius threatened to curse their families if they didn't vote for Dumbledore to be suspended. So, yeah, Hagrid, all of them, I think. 4, and here's the iconic one. "You will find that I will only truly have left this school when none here are loyal to me. You will also find that help will always be given at Hogwarts to those who ask for it." This is a Dumbledore quote. It's huge. It's iconic. It's the one of his probably most recognizable quotes from the series, in my opinion. And it's a big one because it comes back in the Chamber of Secrets when Harry's there and Fawkes comes to save the day, and it's because of the loyalty that Harry shows Dumbledore in that moment, standing up to memory Tom Riddle. It's also a nice little nugget of a foreshadow to the final scene with Harry and Dumbledore together in the King's Cross afterlife version in Deathly Hallows, when he brings this back up and he says, what did he say? Help will always be given, or I don't know, maybe it's a movieism now that I think about it. I don't know how exactly this passage goes in the book. It's been a long time since I've read Deathly Hallows, and we're certainly not there yet in this reread for the podcast. But I definitely know that they used this in the movie for Dumbledore to say that he would adjust or append or rephrase his original statement to you will find that help will always be given at Hogwarts to those who deserve it. Anyways, nice little, I think, kind of double foreshadow to wrap that one up. And you're going to notice that I left out one really big foreshadow from this chapter, and honestly, I was kind of just thought it was too obvious, too low-hanging fruit, but we're still going to give Hermione her kudos or her flowers or whatever the kids are saying nowadays when we give away our
House points.
In true Hogwarts fashion, these points are completely subjective, with no oversight and fully at my discretion. For this episode, I am giving house points to Hermione Granger for solving the whole damn book, and unfortunately getting petrified for her troubles. 50 points, Hermione. And now I'm going to take away points from everyone, seemingly. Ginny, I'm taking points for stealing the diary back when the attacks would have stopped otherwise. That's my theory anyways. 35 points from Ginny. Ron and Harry, 25 points each for letting Hermione go alone and giving a shit about Quidditch instead of going with her to the library, and heaven forbid, going for help when they knew an attack was imminent in the school. Fudge, I'm taking 20 points from Fudge for being an idiot and taking Hagrid to jail. I'm taking 30 points from Lucius Malfoy, for getting Dumbledore suspended. And I am taking 20 points from Dumbledore for not going scorched earth and just shutting all this shit down when you know he could have. I will add these into our tally for the end of this season's Bingy Awards. Before we go, I have to acknowledge the moments in this chapter that were utterly
ridiculous.
While it's not an episode of the binge, if we don't call out what didn't make any sense, I'm gonna make this pretty quick because I said enough about a lot of this already. So I'm just gonna reiterate real quick that Harry and Ron letting Hermione go to the library alone when they knew Muggle-born students were about to get attacked in the school because Quidditch is ridiculous. Cornelius Fudge, the incompetence is ridiculous, but only a glimpse of what's to come with that particular dumbass. And Lucius Malfoy being able to just show up with a note and Dumbledore is suspended? There's got to be some sort of validation process, doesn't there? Like, is this really the official protocol for suspending the headmaster of Hogwarts? Just show up with a note and that's it? Notes go a long way in the wizarding world. Remember when they'd show up to, what is it? Is it chapter 5, maybe, of Sorcerer's Stone, when Hagrid and Harry show up at Gringotts and all it takes is a note from Dumbledore and Hagrid gets to walk away with the freaking Sorcerer's Stone? Or Philosopher's Stone. Shout out to everyone not American. Finally, the fact that it took this long for the school to go on lockdown in the first place is completely ridiculous. There have been way too many attacks for the curfew to just go into effect, like, now. With that, we've reached the end of this episode of Belated Binge. I hope you have enjoyed it. As always, shout out to producer Jack, who I work like a dog. Remember to follow and subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. And if whatever app you're using supports a rating and review option, please leave one. If you're so inclined, also check out the additional benefits available on Patreon at patreon.com/belatedbinge. In the next episode of the podcast, we will completely wrap up this chapter with our headcanon expecto plot changeo question answer. I'll share your thoughts, my theories, and then we will kick off things for the next chapter of the book of Harry Potter in the Chamber of Secrets, which will be chapter 15, Aragog. And I'll be joined with a special guest, Firebird, from the Dusty Cauldron podcast.